This is it.
Yesterday I was missing my script. Good morning. It's a beautiful Friday morning. Now, today is a special day, St. Valentine's Day. I'll start off by telling my colleagues in the studio, Moses, Fina, happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day to you.
Thank you very much.
Happy Valentine's.
And to you, the viewer at home, happy Valentine's Day. Today is a special day. It's not only for lovers. It's a day we share love to loved ones, friends, even enemies. If you have enemies, share love to and with them, always and forever. Everlasting love, like the sun. I am Chukuma Okoro. And thanks for joining us on this show. Now, let's get into it. Debt soars, development dwindles, as NAS passes 54.99 trillion naira 2025 budget.
All right, Nigerians are talking about this. Nigerians will also, we'll also be talking about Indonesia topping Nigeria's Peter Obi. Well, Indonesia tops Nigeria. Peter Obi calls for quick and major electoral reforms. Oh, well, we'll talk about this when we get to that time on the show.
It's Moses Humphrey.
Exactly. That's what I wanted to say. All the same. And I'm Fina. Okay, Chuku. Those are the topic of conversation, the major topic of conversation. You know, we encourage you to be part of today's show. All you have to do is, if you've not done that, do also subscribe on our YouTube channels. On YouTube, we are Voice of the People TV, and on all other social media platforms, we are VOP TV Live. You know, and we also have a website for fresh and trending news stories. Just visit www.vop.ng and believe me, you'll be kept abreast. We also have a number scrolling on your screen. You can send us a 1-minute video of yourself reacting to any topic of conversation, or you can even send us a message, you know, via WhatsApp, because we need you to be part of today's show. With Voice of the People, you have more than a voice. And we have other trending stories or topics that kept the social media buzzing. And one of it is Nigeria's telecommunications giant, MTN, you know, reversed its 15 gig data plans at 200% tariff hike. The company disclosed this in a statement through its official X account on Thursday. Do recall that on Tuesday, MTN commenced implementation of a 200% tariff hike for the 15 gig data bundles alongside other data plans. The hike had contravened the 50% telecom tariff hike approved by Nigeria Communications Commission. Meanwhile, in an update on Thursday, the firm apologized to Nigerians for the 15 gig data tariff hike, calling it a mistake. And this was as members of the National House of Representatives have called for the withdrawal or the suspension of that 50% telecom tariff hike. All the same, they've apologized to Nigerians, saying that it was a mistake and they understand. They've already, you know, kind of retrieved or sent back the money that was deducted from people's account back to them for that subscription. In another development, hours after NNPCL and Dangote Refinery implemented the reduced price of their petroleum product, the Lagos Metropolitan Area Transport Authority, that's LAMATA, announced 18% increase for its bus fares to all destinations. Disclosing this in a notice on Thursday, LAMATA stated that the increment, which takes effect from Monday, is due to increase in the cost of its operation. And this one have made Nigerians, especially those residing in Lagos, ask questions. How is it that we're having a fuel price reduction from NNPCL and also Dangote, you know, who know that the major, you know, distributors of that PMS. And LAMATA is coming up to say that due to cost of operation, they have to increase the fares by 18%. Atlanta, I think a drop off will now be costing like 900 and something naira now, if I'm not mistaken.
From where to where?
You know, from each place, from each pickup to another drop off.
900 extra.
Yes, that's what it added, you know. And one will want to ask, minimum wage have not really increased.
Oh, well,
and people are increasing.
That's the thing. That's the thing. That's the reality of the moment. Everything, price, I mean, people are complaining they are increasing charges because of the cost of doing business. But nobody is really talking about the ordinary Nigerian whose take home has not increased. You know, now, well, let me start off with MTN saying it was a mistake. I read that apology. That apology came off more like an insult, really. They were trying to be funny. They were trying to be funny with the apology, but to me, it felt like they were insulting Nigerians the more. Now, you don't say, I mean, you don't say it was a mistake. You were supposed to deduct 50% and you're deducting 200% from those that use a particular number of gigabytes. And I've said this here before, a lot of people don't even know what is being deducted from their MBs when they use the internet. They don't know. They don't check these things. So reversing it is laudable, but I think that apology, you don't joke with people. You don't joke with things like that. I know say you vex. No
So
vex
it
for
was
us.
not sent that in pidgin language,
Well, I understand the fact that they're trying to reach the ordinary Nigerian, but that's they vex, no vex. No, that's not a professional way of doing things. And then to the Lamata tariff increment, sorry, I beg your pardon, fair increment. Well, when will it stop? That's the question on my mind. When will it stop? When will Nigerians have a breath of fresh air? Price of fuel. Well, price of fuel has come down a little bit, but we are not seeing reduction in other areas. And, price of everything is going up. Electricity tariff, data, everything is going up. It's becoming a lot more difficult being a Nigeria that lives in Nigeria. And, hopefully
Moses,
one day.
yes, it's... well, let me start with the Lamata increase in fare, and I think they gave a reason. They said increase in operational costs. The first question to ask is, Lamata, is it a business? Is it an enterprise? Is it profit-oriented? Is it supposed to make money for the government?
Yeah,
If it is supposed to make money, for the government, then they just have to respond to the stimulus. If there is an increase in their cost, they have to reflect that in the face that they charge. Unfortunately, I like the fact that both of you mentioned salaries are not increased and all of that, and cost of things are, up the roof. That is the economy that we are witnessing now. It pains everybody, it hurts. But the important question should be, what do we do to reverse this? Because it's more like it's a regular talking point. Every day we talk about it. Every other day we talk about it. What do we do? I know that we are trying to hold our leaders to account. But in trying to hold them to account, what more can we do? Should we pour into the streets again? That has not worked because it never worked for us. So what should we do? Should we start by recalling our legislators? That has not also worked because it's cumbersome to do that. So at the end of the day, it's a very complex situation, very complicated. At some point, we don't even know what to do apart from to talk. And people, we deride ourselves by saying, look, after this talk, what happens? Nothing happens. It's quite unfortunate that we are at this sad, more like an end to end of the road. We don't even know where to go to except to hope for the best. Well, hoping for the best, MTN, is good that MTN has apologized. My worry is that whatever MTN does here, that they can't do it in their home country, South Africa.
Can we even see
unfortunately.
that? Can we have that? The
apology.
Yes. Can we have that on the screen? Let's. Yes.
Say the vex.
No. It's you. They vex.
We know.
We know. Yeah.
We know how upsetting it must have been to suddenly wake up to a 200% increase on your digital bundle. We could share several reasons and provide explanations, but all that na story. We don't cast. We get it and admit it. Let's just say na mistake. Does this seem like an apology?
An apology. From a corporate communications department.
But they told people not to stay
multinational.
angry. They say don't stay angry.
This is not
of love.
No, my take on this is this. If it was a mistake, NCC should mistakenly fine them. Yes, NCC should mistakenly fine them too, and probably we'll start discussing the reversal of the fine much later, when the average user would have enjoyed, Another issue is that we don't even, like Moses said, we don't even know how your data is used up. The bandwidth, you don't even know how to calculate it and all of that. You just load, pam, the next thing you see is cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha, and it's all gone.
Someone said something yesterday to me, Chikuma. The person said, MTN, at least they come up to apologize. What happened to your your electricity distribution companies and generating companies and
the problems
transmission
are
companies
layered.
that you know you were entitled to
It's
like
everywhere.
20
It's
hours
everywhere.
supply and nothing is being done. I don't want to
And at the end
apologize
of
to
the
you.
month, you have an estimated bill.
That is it.
If you
For
don't
those that
pay,
use
they
the
disconnect
selective.
you. If they disconnect you, you pay reconnection fee.
And you cannot, you can't even question them when they come to disconnect you. Oh well, let's it as well. Let's move on to other issues. It's a day of love, and Mr. Okoro here chose to represent that by wearing a touch of red or white.
Oh well.
He's a man that loves love.
I think it's a coincidence.
Anyway, let's go to another issue that Nigerians are talking about. Now, in a shocking revelation, Chief of Defense Staff, Christopher Musa, and other top military officials were denied Canadian visa to attend an event in honor of veterans injured in battle. The CDS disclosed this at the National Association of the Institute for Security Studies, AANISS, annual lecture on Thursday, but did not state why he and other military officials were denied visas. Christopher Musa's revelation followed a retired Nigerian corps Martin Nwokolo's asylum denial on the ground that the Nigerian police force was notorious for extortion, bribery, and other vices. In a major response, the National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribadu, strongly condemned the Canadian Embassy for denying visas to Nigeria's Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, and other senior military officers for an unofficial engagement. All right. Well, it's not even about It's not even about the condemnation. It's the manner in which it was done. You know, he said, "Go to hell."
So they can.
That's not a diplomatic kind of statement. You don't say "go to hell" because a country chooses to exercise what they feel is within their rights to do. They have a right to deny you visa if they want to. You don't say "go to hell." You see, we become very defensive. All right, if Kemi Badenoch speaks, somebody somewhere will grab the mic and say, "Who does she think she is?" Somebody denies you visa, you say, "Go to hell." We should fix our country. I think that's the only reasonable thing the NSA said. We should fix our country, but are we going to fix our country? It's not the first time some individuals in Nigeria are being denied visa. Nasir El-Rufai was denied visa at some point for human rights violations. Atiku Abubakar was denied visa for a long time into the US, up until 2019, before he was able to travel to the US. Have we fixed anything, really? During the time of General Sani Abacha, a lot of top military officers were denied visas at that time, you know, and then they will rant and talk, but have we fixed anything, really? Have we fixed anything? Have we been able to, you know, stand shoulder to shoulder to say, yes, we are respecting the rights of the people, we are fighting corruption, we are doing things to ensure that Nigeria takes its pride of place. We're not doing anything. We're just ranting, saying go to hell. Let's fix our country. It's shameful.
Fixing our country.
I
I like the fact that you said that, look, it's quite undiplomatic, but you should also understand that a lot of people at the top there are not schooled in the art of diplomacy, you know, because that statement coming from the National Security Advisor gives Nigeria away as a country that is even not ready, you know, to make improvements. I mean, if I say I want to come to your house and you say, "Chukuma, don't come," should I get angry? Should I take offense? Because that's exactly what happened. You have your reason for asking me not to come.
Yes.
It's as simple as that. You know, so it's a big, I mean, it's larger than what we even understand. What it tells me is also that, look, this administration, the leadership is not ready to make amends for their mistakes. I like the fact that you pointed out the Kemi Badenoch altercation with the vice president. Somebody said something. Instead of you addressing the issue the person raised, you know, you go after the person. Doesn't make sense. It makes you even irresponsible. And outsiders are watching. and all of this. People are denied visas every day. People are denied visas every day. Highly placed people, and there's no fuss about it. So why should this one, National Security Advisor for that matter, says you can go to hell? Abyss. What's that supposed to mean? It's quite unfortunate. Anyway,
They thought that how Nigeria is operating, how the top officials in Nigeria operate in Nigeria, anything can happen, and no one is going to be holding anybody accountable, So they were expecting the same thing to happen over there in Canada. And I'm happy that this particular, I'm so happy about the first time I saw that, I was very, very happy. Reason is this: you cannot wake up and make Nigeria not to be what it should be for Nigerians, and you think you can travel to any other place where things are working, a Senate where things are working well, with your baggages, and you expect them not to talk. Believe me, I believe if they had actually met the travel requirements for them to go to Canada, I don't really think that Canadian government have something they're holding against Nigerians in particular. But on this particular note, I'm happy that this one was denied. I could remember when it was the turn of CJN, then when they're supposed to travel for another engagement, and those who weren't there at that cadre were allowed to travel, but she was denied the visa. And some people were asking, why would that happen? Why is it that people who are kind of her subordinates were allowed to travel and she weren't allowed to? This will make you understand that Nigeria is not working.
All the judges that were supposed to be on that trip were denied visas.
But their aides were allowed to travel.
Yes, but their aides were allowed to travel.
Interesting.
I think America wanted to make a statement regarding the 2023 general election.
Exactly.
Yes.
Interestingly. And imagine, I think it was yesterday that this report came out that the Deputy Director of the Department of State Services, DSS, called for a policy to mandate first-class graduates in Nigeria University to serve in the country's secret agency. Speaking at the 2025 Distinguished Personality Lecture organized by the Center for Peace and Strategic Studies, the University of Ilorin, Kwara State, Ike Nweiwe argued that individuals in low academic performance should not be entrusted with the nation's security. It's a mandate for me, the mandatory language for me. Like, I'll go to school, and I don't think the government in any way have contributed
they
a
can't
dime.
compel anybody.
He was saying they need to mandate people to work there.
Well, you
said,
can't. It's the nation's security architecture, so people cannot be mandated. But even if he uses that term, I'm not sure he means force them to work there. But yes, I think people should be given incentives that will lure them to want to work, especially highly intelligent people. All right, they should be given incentives that will make them want to work in the nation's security architecture. It's best we use our best brains. So I think what he's canvassing for is good, but you might just have a problem with the language used. But it's a good. I think it's a good intention.
Can I ask you something more?
Okay.
Let me ask you something now. We have the military. Why are you smiling? Why are you smiling? I haven't even asked. We have the military. We have the members of Nigerian police force and a whole lot of other persons that find themselves where they want to serve Nigeria, very well. At the end of the day, what is there for them? We have the veterans not being... This pension we're talking about is their money, not that government is doing them a favor. They are not being paid their pensions and they graduate. And you still want me to do what? To come
I think when I heard that statement, I faulted it in several ways. One, my payoff line, the bottom line is, if you want to conduct recruitment, into DSS, make the exams as transparent as possible. Nothing says that, Moses, you made a first class and that I made a 2-1, that you do better than me in a particular job. It is not a measure of intelligence.
Yeah, it is not.
That first class. If you conduct a transparent recruitment exercise, you get the best brains. IQ matters a lot.
Yes.
You get the point.
Yes. It's not just yes, you're right. It's not just about the first class, but in other crimes, they are what's the word I'm looking for now? They are recruited. They're recruited from when they get into school, from their year one. Certain individuals are, monitored and then approached at some point.
We used to have those things here. When I was in university, Liver Brothers, Nigerian breweries, Guinness, all of them used to come. What are they looking for? people that were on the dean's list.
Yeah.
I think the thing stopped shortly before we graduated. People that were on the dean's list.
They did that
and all
while I
of
was
that.
in school too.
Okay.
They did that while I was in school. They called us.
Even these days, some of these multinationals go abroad. They go to UK to recruit.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move away from all of these trending issues. Let's talk about what the papers are saying this morning quickly. Without wasting time, let's dive into the papers that we have on our table this morning. We have the Vanguard, Punch newspaper, the Guardian as well. Now, from the cover page of the Punch, experts list that 54.99 trillion naira budget. Experts list funding hurdles as debt servicing takes 14 trillion naira. And the writer to that story is lawmakers approve 344.85 billion naira for themselves. Salaries, overheads, gulp huge share of budget. Northwest communities blame fresh killings on troops withdrawal. Southwest governors plan joint operation against ISWAP terrorists. FG ex-envoys slam Canada for denying military chiefs visas. Yahoo boys now involved in ritual killings. Banditry, EFCC chair. Where has he been? Has he been sleeping? Okay. Ogun Odo clash over ownership of oil-rich island. Customs deliver 3,897 arms, ammunition to control center. Loan controversy on Nosonya defends self in court. These are the headlines from the Punch newspaper.
On the cover page of Vanguard newspaper, I beg your pardon, this morning, you'll get the banner headline to be, banks limiting ATM withdrawal below 20,000 naira face CBN penalty. And the window headlines are, Oyetola reaffirms commitment to marine resource development. The story is on page 32 of Vanguard newspaper. National Assembly passes 54.9 trillion naira 2025 budget. Visa denial, Canada, I beg your pardon, can go to hell. That's coming from Nohuri the defense chief. 1,949 massacre of coal miners. Families sue FG, UK government orders. I will take that again for clarity purposes. 1949 massacre of coal miners. Families sue FG, UK government orders. All right, the story is on page 11 of Vanguard newspaper. We have other headlines here to be Telcoms MTN backpedals, reverses 200% data to refine. Right after that story, Labour demands sanctions over alleged impunity. And I have a pictorial there. That's where we have the Southwest governors. They meet in Lagos. And all the headlines that made it to the cover page of Vanguard newspaper today. Senate asks FG to repair bad roads nationwide. Influx of ISWA, Boko Haram, Southwest governors mole creation of joint security outfit. Loan controversy, Onosoya goes to court to clear name. And on sports segment, that's on page 39. 2025 Under-20 AFCON, Flying Eagles in group of death. And those are the stories you'll find on the cover page of Vanguard newspaper today.
Now let's move over to the Guardian with the big story. Electricity as medicine, hidden costs of providing healthcare in darkness. That's the big story on pages 4 and 5 of the Guardian newspaper. Critics question priorities as National Assembly passes record 54.99 trillion naira budget. That story is on page 6. Southwest governors partner on regional development, plan joint security team against bandits. I hope my friend Delefanimo will hear this. Asaba bans activities of unregistered native doctors. That's on page 29. Loan controversy. Onasanya appears in court to clear name. And NSA criticizes Canadian embassy for refusing CDS orders visa. That story is on page 7. MTN PEX call rate at 13 naira 8 kobo per minute. Apologizes for 200% data price hike. And there's a pictorial there. I think, we'll find out about all of that during the newspaper review. Customs intercepts large catch of arms, ammunition in Lagos. And UI, that's University of Ibadan medical students, protest horse exemption from restored power to UCH, that's University College Hospital. And that's all from the Guardian newspaper.
And that's how far we can go, taking a quick peep on the national dailies today. Do want to join Chukuma and Moses Proper for the newspaper review. That'll be on top of the hour at 9 o'clock. We'll go on a quick break, and when we'll come back, we'll be joined by Barrister Asim Adams and Mr. Dele Fanimo to help dissect the fact that debt keeps on soaring in Nigeria and development keeps dwindling as National Assembly passes the 54.99 trillion naira 2025 budget. Do well to stay with us.
Empty hunger.
To the blaring horns of a hustling city, the loudest voices of the common man got a medium to be heard.
This particular administration, they were coming unprepared.
It's not a bad thing to renovate the president's lawn.
Through top-notch programming, unbiased reportage of news, sports, business, entertainment, and cultural documentaries, Voice of the People 90.3 FM became a symbol for 21st century media. And now, a new baby is born. Voice of the People Television, VOP TV, youthful, full of vigor and penchant for excellence in the continent's media space, exposing the wrongs, applauding the rights, dissecting the news without fear or favor, through factual and accurate stories and contents.
Corruption kills three things that makes a society.
Representing the interests of the people and giving them a voice. Voice of the People TV is here to stay towards building a fair society. VOP TV, Voice of the People Television, truly a voice for the people. Are you ready to connect with distinguished Nigerians around the world? The Diaspora Perspective is here to share the views of Nigerians in the diaspora on burning issues.
From the street of New York, the royal cities of London, and the bustling cities of Europe, Voice of the People Television brings to you a round table and collage of interesting views from Nigerians in diaspora.
Join the host of the show and some Nigerians in diaspora, Dr. Damages, the flagship, Show, and KJ, as they discuss the experiences, challenges, and triumphs of Nigerians living abroad.
Discussing and analyzing everything from politics, culture, policies, career success, and how Nigerians are staying connected to their roots. Showing every Saturday by 2 p.m. West African Time and 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
The Diaspora Perspective, giving a voice to Nigerians abroad. Do you want your voice to be heard? Do you know that you matter in the scheme of things? The People's Voice, the show where ordinary citizens take center stage as we discuss the biggest stories that affect you and I. With you in mind, we facilitate lively discussions, debates, and interviews on the topics that matter most to you and I, from social justice to economic empowerment, education to healthcare, governance, and more. Tackling tough topics and amplifying your voice. People's Voice, Mondays through Thursdays, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Join the conversation and make your voice count. The People's Voice. Make your voice count.
Now, welcome back and thanks for staying with us. Now, the National Assembly on Thursday passed the 54.99 trillion naira 2025 appropriation bill. The bill was passed separately by the Senate and the House of Representatives. A breakdown of the budget showed 3.645 trillion naira for statutory transfers, 14.317 trillion naira for debt servicing, 13.64 trillion for recurrent expenditure, and 23.963 trillion naira for capital expenditure, that's development fund, with fiscal deficit put at 13.08 trillion naira. Now, the deficit to gross domestic product GDP ratio was put at 1.52%. You'll recall that just last week, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu increased the 2025 fiscal year budget from an initial 49.7 trillion naira to 54.2 trillion naira, seeking approval from the Senate and the House of Representatives. Well, but several questions are being raised from some quarters as to what exactly happened to the several irregularities seen and raised by several committees during the budget defense and in the budget before now. These questions and more are the reason the presidential candidate of the Labour Party in the 2023 general election, Peter Obi, called for greater transparency and accountability as a result of the recent increase in the budget of restoration to 54 trillion naira due to reported revenue growth. Well, the chairman of the House Committee on Appropriations, Abubakar Bichi, while presenting the bill for consideration, stated that the committee met with the Presidential Economic Planning team to further discuss revenue projections and expenditure for the 2025 appropriation bill. According to him, the 2025 appropriation bill was presented late compared to that of 2024. Now, let's bring in our guest. We are joined in the studio in the Lagos office where we are broadcasting from by Mr. Dele Fanimo. Dele is a seasoned reporter and VOP in-house analyst. We also have Barrister Asim Adams. Barrister Adams is a legal practitioner and a political affairs analyst. Gentlemen, thanks for coming to the show.
Good morning.
Good morning once again.
Good
Good morning.
Barrister Asim, let me start off with you. The budget has been passed. Should that be good news to Nigerians, considering the components of the budget? I mean, we still have, despite the increase, in expected revenue, we still have a huge 13 trillion naira, as deficit budgeting, essentially meaning that we are going to borrow that amount to support the budget. Can you help us walk us through what your understanding of this budget of restoration, the implications for the average Nigerian as you understand it, and the fact that, look, there's a huge chunk of money is devoted to recurrent expenditure, which is more like servicing of, which is more like salaries and overhead costs. We are not even talking about debt servicing, which is going to take 14 trillion naira of the 54 trillion naira budget. Can you help us understand all of this?
Well, thank you. I don't know. I don't understand why this budget issue in Nigeria is more or less like a political party election or national election, where people begin to debate issues, kind of heat up the economy, polity, and all those things. And what I found out is this, that the Nigerian budget or budgeting system has been opaque. Many of us do not even understand what is going on there. I'm very sure that even the presidency, they are the only ones that know exactly what this budget and budgeting is all about. The ordinary Nigerian is not aware, like myself. I don't know exactly what they are budgeting for. I don't know the essence of why we're able budgeting in Nigeria. I've said that before. The reasons are not far-fetched, in my own opinion. Now, every year we reel out, both states and the federal, they reel out figures, recurrent, whatever capital is spent. I don't really understand some of these economic jargons. But I found out that budgeting in Nigeria has become a fraudulent enterprise. What I mean by fraudulent enterprise is this. Are you aware that about 7 bodies are supposed to monitor budget implementations in Nigeria? 7 bodies made up of intelligentsias in the economic sphere and eggheads, But what do we have? Why do we still have deficit budgeting? The ones that they have budgeted, for instance, this particular year's budget, how is the money being expended? Why is it that every year they budget trillions and money is specified for projects, yet you still see abandoned projects all over Nigeria? So where has the money gone to? So these are the questions that has been bothering my mind. Therefore, if I'm to represent the average Nigerian is distant, from budget and budgeting. The only people who know about, the abracadabra that is happening in the budgeting, the boju kind of, syndrome happening in budgeting, are those in government. Maybe the National Assembly has joined the clique, I don't know. But those in government should know what and how they implement budgets, as the case may be. The average Nigerian man like myself, we are very far from the budget. We don't even know we only hear figures being bandied and mentioned by the president or the governor or whoever the person is. But at the end of the day, we don't know how that particular budget is implemented, how it affects our daily life and living. This is the problem and the quagmire that many of us find ourselves. So the average Nigerian man is not even concerned.
Is it that we're not concerned now, Barrister Asim Adams, or is it that the more we talk about it, the more it's being seen as people trying to work against or topple the government? They will target treasonable felony and a whole lot. Because I could recall that so many persons are talking about the irregularities, seen in this particular budget in the time that we presented it. For example, there was a discrepancy between what the Nigerian police force tendered and what the IGP brought when he came to defense his own budget. And that also made the National Assembly to say, we are not going to go with this. How come that, it took them, I don't think it's up to 1 week for them to say we're passing this particular budget. What happened to those irregularities? Nigerians talked about it. The likes of Peter Obi cried out. He talked about, how we need to make it to be more transparent for Nigerians to understand. What really happened? What is happening, Barrister Asim?
That is the question all of us have been asking. And I'm very sure that is the allusions Peter Obi is making towards, what the budget, whatever as the case may be. So for those who understand it, are those who are in the corridors of powers, or those who are in the presidency, or those who crafted the budget in the first instance. But for us, in fact, I'm confused. I don't really know exactly from 49 trillion to 54.2 trillion etc. How did they arrive at these figures? And even they approved 54.2 trillion. What about the implementation? What records, have these 7 bodies that are supposed to monitor, the budget? What did they do last year? How did they monitor the budget of last year? Can they come up, with an audited report of how that particular budget was expended for that a year period? Talking about this new one. So these are the questions bothering our minds. Maybe the economic heads will maybe, understand more than this. But on the political side and on the side of the social masses, I don't think we know anything about the budget. It's so opaque.
Okay, now Barrister Asim Adams, can you help us, walk us through this Fiscal Responsibility Act? Layman's knowledge or my own understanding, I noticed that is an act in Nigeria whereby before another budget will be presented or being passed, we're supposed to know what happened to the ones that we signed before now. Yes. It's true that we operate a ZBB budget in Nigeria, but this present administration have not told us what happened to the 2024 budget. And yet, they say that they are going to run the 2024 budget into June 2025 with this particular one, and we are now getting another increment on the basis that the president said that the reason is the likes of the FIRS, custom, and all that were able to generate more money, so they have to, bring in more. They added, I think, 4-point-something trillion naira into the budget. What does that Fiscal Responsibility Act talk about?
Now, what that particular act is talking about is like the monitoring I talk about. That is the responsibility. That is, you have to, how did you spend, the monies that was given to you? For instance, I have a small company and my driver says he needs 20,000 or 50,000 to buy a full tank, as the case may be. If he comes back, he has to let me know how many liters he bought, etc., as the case may be, and have to put him on his toes to know how he expended the money I gave to him for that particular fuel. So the fiscal responsibility is just like the word responsibility is saying, is that it means that there is physical irresponsibility, which means if a particular, like our nation and the expenditures that we are doing may be very, very irresponsible, and you are going out of, the route or route that you were supposed to take. But I have stated here that even that particular Fiscal Responsibilities Act gives powers to 7 bodies to monitor the budget, to make sure that this budget is not being implemented in a wayward manner. That the budget of last year, is not being implemented or has not been implemented or expended in a manner that is inconsistent with the act. But it's not possible. If I want to list them, I listed everything here.
Okay, all right.
Minister of Finance, Economic Intelligence, there are so many, there are about 7 bodies.
All right.
Now they must have to give their report to say that, last year budget, they follow the act in terms of fiscal responsibility.
Okay,
but we don't have such a kind of a report from them.
All right, well,
that's the problem.
We'll keep digging. Hopefully, we'll find a report that speaks to that. Let me bring it to Mr. Fanimo. Welcome to the conversation.
Thank
now,
you.
Nigerians are concerned. You see, Nigerians are, some Nigerians have said, why do we focus on the budget? But the people don't have, people lack trust in those that have been elected, to make decisions on their behalf. And that's why they don't trust what is being done. Now, let's look at a few things in the budget. Health. Well, statutory transfers. The statutory transfers is 3.65 trillion naira. Servicing of debts, 14.32 trillion naira. Recurrent expenditure, 13.06 trillion naira. Capital expenditure, 23.96 trillion naira. My focus is debt servicing. That amount of money allocated for debt servicing, 14.32 trillion naira, just to service debts, knowing that the manufacturing sector in Nigeria is not really thriving, not as one would expect it to thrive. And yet, we're servicing debts with this amount of money. And then when you look at the percentage placed on infrastructure, 8.16% of the entire budget is what has been set aside for infrastructure. What would you say is the actual intention of this administration, seeing that these monies are, this allocation seems to might further impoverish generations of Nigerians on board?
You see, debt servicing is statutory because that would have been a commitment to servicing your debt before that loan is released to you. And so you cannot afford in any way to falter or to renege on those contractual agreements. And a breach of it, I'm happy Barrister Adams is here to tell you that a breach of it could, one, embarrass us diplomatically. You recall that even contract turned sour was the reason why our presidential aircraft was seized abroad. So to that extent, and when you increase the budget, it is automatic that you have to also increase debt servicing, because debt servicing is calculated on the ratio of the budget at certain percentage. That's why, initially when the budget was 49.7, it was 13 point something trillion debt servicing. But as soon as it increased to 54.9, it became 14 point something. So it's calculated based on ratio to the actual budget. And there's no way you can run away from it. So that explains why we are servicing debt. You see, the debt servicing itself is not what we should interrogate. I'm always saying that we can borrow. Even the best of democracies, they still borrow. The biggest debtor in the world today is America. Yet, America is on running. That's why when you want to talk about businesses, you say this business is an ongoing concern. It has not been declared bankrupt. And as such, you can do business with such company. So Nigeria has not gone bankrupt. Like when it happened in Greece about 8 or 9 years ago, when the level of imports with ratio of external reserve became so depleted that Greece had to have that problem. Now, it is one thing to borrow money, but it's another thing to deploy it to proper use. In our case in Nigeria, most of these funds that we warehouse in form of loans, we don't get to see the impact of this in our social life. For instance, if you borrow money and you want to upgrade rail system, within a period of time, let it be seen by Nigerians that you borrowed so amount, and in peer review with other nations that also access this type of loan, this is what they did with their own, and this is what we are doing with our own. So, you know how much we have borrowed to enhance power in Nigeria, but up till now, a particular government spent 16-point-something billion within a space of 8 years. Up till now, we are still hovering between 4,500, 4,800. We have not even peaked at 5,000 megawatts. Whereas the same loan that is even not up to that $16 billion was borrowed by another country, and today that country enjoys 90,000 megawatts, such that they have surplus to deploy. So these are areas where we should focus. It's not just borrowing. Yes, there is no way you can stop government from borrowing. But what you can do is to interrogate what they do with this money. If you borrow money for infrastructure, let us see how far you have gone with infrastructure. If you borrow money on health, for instance, I was reading something last night. A state governor earmarked 5 billion naira to upgrade primary health care. And I tell you, it is not the business of a state governor to spend money on primary health care centers. It is the responsibility of the local government to take care of the primary health centers. The purview of the governor is to take care of state hospitals and specialist hospitals, whereas it's the responsibility of the federal government to take care of tertiary hospitals, like federal medical centers, teaching hospitals.
Let me stay with you. I like the fact that you established the premise that, look, borrowing is not a problem. You know, it's actually what you borrow with the money. Yes. But over time, if we have not solved this problem, should we continue to borrow?
That is, you see, that's why I said one thing. You see, the day you surrender your sovereignty to another person to represent you, you don't have a choice on whatever he gives. And that is where you need to make sure that you elect the right people into government. Because the moment they take over responsibilities as governor, Trump today is riding roughshod in America.
No, I don't get what you mean when you say once you elect someone to represent you.
Yeah, you have surrendered your sovereignty to that person.
Okay. It's held for you in trust. You can take it back.
The process of taking it back in Nigeria is too cumbersome that it's almost impossible.
Okay. So what
you don't even have power
it with the borrowing, the borrowing spree.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Because you have surrendered your sovereignty, if he borrows on your behalf, the only thing you can do is to begin to interrogate what he has done with the money. You can't stop him from borrowing. Because the borrowing is also a function of relationship between the legislative arm and the executive arm. Once the executive arm and once the legislative arm approves this borrowing, you as an ordinary Nigerian cannot go on the street and say you are stopping it. It's an exercise in futility. That's why I said it starts with making sure that before you surrender, it's just like you want to marry a wife. If you know a wife can kill you, why would you surrender yourself to say you want to marry her? Why would you allow somebody you don't
Nigerians
trust?
should give up and allow the government do whatever they like.
You don't seem to understand what I'm saying.
No, I do.
What I'm saying is, make sure that that person that would mess you up when you surrender your freedom to that person is not allowed to get to where it will misuse your freedom.
So just ensure that you elect the right person into office.
I think it's more like you are trying to express more like a sense of frustration and surrender, like Nigerians should surrender since the government is borrowing.
Don't you have power to vote?
No, I mean before the okay, what if the hold on, let me land. You are trying to say that Nigerians should express a sense of surrender. I mean, there's nothing we can do. The government must always borrow.
That's not what I said. You are not. Maybe listen again so that you can understand.
I understand what you are saying.
You don't seem to understand. What I'm saying is, let's use this analogy. If you come to me and you say you want my vote, it should be based on the trust.
Okay, you now tell me I want to extract a commitment from you that you are not going to borrow.
No.
Well, the bottom line here is that those elected have been elected already.
That's what I'm saying.
Now we are
why
looking
did you not interrogate that person before you surrender to that person?
But you know what they said, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Now you're making it seem like it is the fault of the people voting in those that do not really have their interest at heart.
Yes.
The government. That's okay.
Yes.
Okay. But is that fair, really? Because
on the part of who?
It's not fair to the people of Nigeria.
It's fair.
It's not fair because.
Let me give you an example why it is fair. Let me give you an example of why it is fair.
Okay, before you give me the example of why it is
South
fair,
Korea.
let me just drop my question. Can we truly say those elected were the choice of the people? Were the voices of the people upheld during elections, or did people just accept what was thrown to them?
Well,
let's be honest.
What is thrown to them?
So what should the people have done?
Listen, I'll give you an example. It happened late last year. Somebody woke up from the wrong side of his bed and said he was going to introduce martial law in South Korea. And within 6 hours, those legislators, they had already closed for the day. But they marched on the National Assembly, and said, no, just wait. And said, no, we are not going to allow this. The legislators that had closed for the day came back, scaled the fence, and 190 of them sat in that same chamber with the symbol of authority, which is the mace, regardless of the fact that they have closed for the day, and said, we are not going this way. And they aligned with the people. What that tells you is, those people that are legislators in South Korea aligned with the people because it's the choice of the people that made them get to the state assembly.
Let me ask you, why didn't the electorate wait for another election year to change their legislators and extract a commitment from them that, look, this is what you are going to do on our behalf? Because essentially you said that, look, there's nothing Nigerians can do until an election cycle.
I didn't say that.
No,
I didn't say that.
What did you say? You said there's
maybe
nothing
this defensive listening.
No, I think you are the one that is being defensive here.
No.
The analogy you gave just defeated their thesis.
No.
The legislators aligned with the people because the people rejected. So why didn't they wait for an election year to change the legislators?
So why don't we reject obnoxious policies here?
But you said there's nothing
Nigerians
can do.
But you are aware that Nigerians come up to say we are hungry, and they took the streets to say we are hungry and we're protesting so many things. For example, the fuel pump price hike and a whole lot. They talked about how Nigerians are suffering, how Nigerians are moving further into poverty, how they are being impoverished by the elected persons. And at the end of the day, what happened? Some of them have been, they are there in court, they've been paraded for treasonable felony, and a whole lot. So are you now still saying that voices of Nigerians, like Moses Riley asked, could in any way be upheld? Given the fact that when I protest, it is my constitutional right to protest what you're doing to me that's not right, and then you run me in for treasonable felony. Some of them, I think minors also were arrested, and they were detained, they were tried in adult court. That shouldn't even happen.
You see, let me tell you, there are various ways of protesting. And that's why, if we get it right, we would enforce certain things in Nigeria. Do you know that during, I think it was Gorbachev in Russia, when there was a policy against the masses, people trooped into the National Assembly and they rolled out the tanks. The military came out. But at the point, the people resisted the military. At some point, it was live on television. We saw soldiers putting off their uniform and aligning with the masses when the masses overwhelmed them. But what do you have here? When somebody is protesting against government, there's another arranged people or protesting for government.
All right.
And there will always be clash.
It's okay. So it's the people's fault. Okay. Thank you very much for that assertion. Now let's bring it back to Barrister Asim Adams. Now let's talk about exchange rate. Exchange rate has continually fluctuated. This is just your thoughts. I know you like to talk about the constitution of things.
This is constitutional too.
Exchange rate has been fluctuating, affecting businesses and Nigerians in general. Now, should Nigerians brace up for further devaluation, or is there some sort of stabilization strategy that you foresee?
I don't see anyone. Even though I am not an economist, even though I am not Thomas Malthus, but I don't see any plan by the government to show up the strength of the naira, because the naira, like I normally say, is that has become a wayward currency. You know, dancing acrobatics. In fact, the naira right now is lame. It cannot even get up, because some months, or let me say last year or 2 years ago, I normally read in the newspapers or say, oh, naira has appreciated, you know, with X whatever percentage. I don't know, maybe the last time was about 4 years ago, 2 years ago. I don't know whether the naira is still a currency that is, waiting for oxygen, from those who put it down in the first instance. Now, how do you show up your naira? There must be conscious efforts. You see, when you look at those who have tinkered with economies, you look at the Indian example, you look at the Singaporean example. These countries found that some of their CBN governors, ministers of finances, etc., as the case may be, were not up to the level that they wanted them to operate. They had to go out and outsource. A British man came in and reorganized and rejigged the economy, and he left. But in Nigeria here, you see CBN government people dabbling into, issues of politics and whatever as the case may be, whereas the naira is falling down the well. So for me, I don't really understand which plans are in place for them to show up the strength of the naira. Now, number one, they said production. Are we producing, or is there a conscious effort for us to begin to produce what we can't produce before or we couldn't produce? As it is right now, the naira has even become weaker, and more policies of government being put in place has even put the naira on a reverse gear. For instance, I heard that this port levies, whatever it is, has been jacked up again. That is why you find that the average Nigerian man cannot even buy, a good car for himself and his family.
Well, some have argued that might further help local industries.
See, the local industries we are talking about, there's no nation, even in the US, even the big, economic, nation, India, for instance, Germany, etc., they encourage their local industries, as the case may be, but they still rely on, foreign, imported goods. But you understand, for competition's sake, etc. But in Nigeria here, for instance, where is the automobile industry that you now stifle, importation of cars? For instance, where are the industries? In those days, I could tell you, yes, in Bauchi, you had people who were manufacturing tractors. We had Anamco in Anambra State. You now have this company, I think it was in Kano, Pujo.
In Kaduna.
In Kaduna,
Yes.
you have them. Then you now have those that manufacture Igala. There's Igala, yes. So then you can find out that these people were, trying to bring in local cars.
But what about some of these companies are coming back? Dangote and Peugeot Automobile, they are doing something in Kaduna.
Yes.
And Innocent Motors is there. Shouldn't they be protected?
They should be. See. The protection is this. Let me say for an example. How have they encouraged these particular, companies you have mentioned now, for them to churn out, populist, driven cars? For instance, the Volkswagen, as we see, I'm sorry, I'm calling the brand names. You see that particular, brand of vehicle was invented by a particular government to solve issues, for the downtrodden, for those who could not afford those big cars. You understand? Even if you go to the UK, you see there's one called Cooper. They're small, whatever the case may be. So that if I have, little more, I can go for those kind of things instead of go for luxury cars. So what is the conscious, or what are the conscious efforts being put in here for us to say, okay, let us encourage the local manufacturing industries. Now,
this increase in tariff is to discourage import.
I understand, but you have to put in a template. For instance,
okay,
this particular, manufacturing company, like those into local manufacturing of vehicles, you give a 5-year template and say, okay, we are giving you now, between now and the next 5 years, bring out a particular, populist-driven, car that can economize fuel.
Okay.
Cars that can do what now, even though they are not powered on fuel. That is why we were even happy that the CNG, whatever was, brought in. But the CNG approach now lost steam. If they had powered, and maybe empowered those companies to convert from, whatever to CNG,
okay,
I am sure that I don't even need to even go for a new car. I just follow what I have right now. But nothing is being done about all these things. So when you strangle, importation, and you don't have any other place for you to begin to produce, you are going to have high cost of those things we are trying to produce.
All right, thank you very much, Barrister Asim. We understand that our guest from Benin, God's Power Okumbo, has joined us. But before we go to God's Power, Dele, let me ask you, you are a business editor, can you help us understand what informs this exchange rate fluctuation? What do you think that we should do to bring down the exchange rate in favor of the Naira? Quick one.
There are two ways to do it.
Okay.
On the part of Nigerians, we celebrate luxurious items that we don't produce here. And that puts pressure on our foreign exchange. For instance, some people with ordinary headache, they jet abroad for health tourism.
Yeah, because don't you think it's because they can afford it?
They can afford it, but they are at the expense of the currency.
Okay.
Because they are going to spend foreign currency. When you travel, you are putting pressure on the currency. Okay. You understand? And the more you do that, the more you put pressure on currency. You recall that you and I know that at some point in India and some other nations, they had to put a break and began to promote their own homegrown commodities. Yeah. And so that technically reduced pressure on their foreign exchange. You imagine today now, Dangote is making headway by exporting products, and is bringing in foreign exchange through that process. Now imagine by the time you have Boa and some other refineries coming up and now exporting, the pressure on the Naira will reduce. Okay. Then this unbridled craving for foreign goods. As low as we have people doing, manufacturing and producing certain commodities in Nigeria, but because we have this feeling that I want to show that I'm better than my peer, you rather buy the imported one and neglect the local one. So through that, we are putting pressure. Then two, government consistently had been non-committal to this mantra of let's diversify. How much of diversification have we witnessed? In spite of every government coming to say we are diversifying. Now, we are leaving our mineral resources in the hands of non-state actors. Is that diversification? When government is supposed to be on top of that to ensure that whatever accrues, part of why American dollar is strong is the big gold reserve that is in America.
But there's a new, let's say, a new directive now.
I want to chip in.
That says that.
Let me just.
Okay.
Let me just finish this. Now, what about agriculture? Agriculture shouldn't be a big problem for federal government if the federal government is serious about it. If we migrate from importing food to homegrown agric produce, you can be sure we can even export. Today, every morning, Saudi Arabia imports fruits.
All right. Okay.
But they get it from some other nations, and when you buy from such nations, you are strengthening the currency of that nation.
All right, then. I think Barrister Sims has something to add. Go ahead.
What I wanted to say is this. You see, the government does not have a conscious belief and effort to help the Nigerian economy grow. That is my opinion.
Why?
And I have reasons for that. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is this. There is no nation that cannot or will not import goods to its shores. There is no nation that will say everything that I am taking today we are made 100% in this country. No. But government look at areas of strength and looked at areas of weakness. For instance, a good example, we were clapping for the last administration of Buhari when he came with this rice, whatever pyramid as the case may be. But later we found that it was a scam. The question we have asked now is that they said the reason why Nigerians were ready to support, the policies of that particular administration because they said, so we can produce this kind of rice. So private investors now venturing into, rice production because it was activated, by the government of the day. But later we found out that it was a big scam. It was later found out that monies were budgeted to sensitize production, massive production of rice in Nigeria here. But that same money was embezzled by people in government. So when I say that government consciously, have, played to the arena to stunt the growth of the economy to their advantage, that is one of my reasons. The second one is this. If you look at what is going on today, most presidents of the world, they in their convoy, you are going to see, vehicles made in that particular country. But in Nigeria today, all the presidents that have been here, they go outside, to do what? To buy foreign vehicles, GMCs, Escalade, etc., as case may be. Now, if you don't do that, how do you not think that the people who are following you will see things from that way? Lastly on this, are you aware that a particular brand of vehicle today that most of us ride, it's a luxury export, to the United States of America? That is Lexus. That is the meaning of Lexus. Let me just come out open. The essence of Lexus is that luxury export to the US. And the reason was not that US government could not, or the country could not produce their vehicles. They had it. But they found out that, see, Americans had that flair for that particular vehicle. They now gave conditions. In order for that particular industry to grow side by side, they now gave conditions as, okay, since you are so obsessed, with this a brand of whatever, then you have to upgrade. We are going to give you specifications, which we are going to meet. If you don't meet it, we cannot allow that particular product to come in. But if you meet it, those products will come in. Not that they killed, the imposition of that particular brand or vehicle. So these are the kind of things that we have been asking the Nigerian government to do. Now, if I have said number of times that I want to ask how many Nigerian presidents, can tell me chapter 2 of the 1999 Constitution, they don't have it.
Okay.
So I'll end it here.
Thank you very much, Barrister C. Adams. Now let's quickly take you to Benin, where God's Power Okumbo is standing by. Well, God's Power, thank you very much for joining the conversation. Now, with Nigeria's mainstay being crude oil, basically, and this 2025 budget, the allocation, the pegging of how much Nigeria intends to sell its crude oil. Do you think this budget seems sustainable, or are we going to see a situation whereby some additions might be made to it, or maybe some elongations later in the coming days?
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. Thanks to everybody right there. I'll be following the discussion. To say if it is sustainable, it all depends on our government, whom we are aware that, like Barrister said, they are not making conscious efforts to make this economic. Because if you ask if it's sustainable or they are going to come back to increase it based on the price of our crude oil now, I will tell you that for me already, I've seen so much expenses. 54.99 trillion naira is not a small money to save. If we had the previous budget of 49 points, it's still enough, for them to manage our crude and manage the country as it's supposed to be. The 54.99 is enough. They can manage, based on the sales for our oil now, they can also manage with it and make the country place for everybody. Because personally, looking at 14.317 as the service for loan, I think that this government is not taking the right steps. This has been the case. The effort they are putting to manage the country is too poor for the country to work as it's supposed to be. So for me, coming back to say this is not enough because of one SYZ excuses will not be accepted. It's something that we shouldn't think about at all. It's something that we shouldn't think about.
Let me come back to Barrister C. Adams before we get to our concluding thoughts now. Barrister, now, the policies of this administration, the policies of CBN, is such that some Nigerians have wondered if it's to further impoverish the people or, to lift Nigeria out of the doldrums right now. CBN came up with a policy the other day where, withdrawals at ATMs, the 3 free transfers has been taken, free transfers in a month has been taken away. Now for every transfer, for every withdrawal you make at the ATM point, you get for every 20,000 naira, 100 naira is taken from your account. I made a withdrawal from a POS. We know that ATMs are not closer to the people, and sometimes you go to these ATM points and there is no money in there. So the POS operators have come to stay. They're everywhere, and I made a 15,000 naira withdrawal at an ATM, and I was shocked when I was told that it was 400 naira that I would pay as charges. I was grinding my teeth because that's a huge chunk taken from whatever is left. in the account.
Yes.
What constitutional, let's go to constitutional. What constitutional measure can Nigerians take to compel this government or its agencies to reverse such policies that seem to further impoverish the people?
Very simple. Chapter 2 of the 1999 Constitution.
Here we go.
If you look at chapter 2, it encompasses all these things we are talking about.
Okay.
Responsibility, how to hold your government accountable. There's a particular group called SERA. You see, they have been on their toes. They are always going to court, getting judgments here and there. But those judgments are not implemented. You can't execute them.
Really?
Good. They will tell you that the SERA has asked or gotten a judgment from a particular court to tell president he has to account for how the budget, whatever was suspended. If the president will just walk away, you know why? Because chapter 2 of the 1999 Constitution has not become justiciable. What does that mean? When a particular, law or act, it's just there. It's like a verbose kind of, it's just walking, like an earthworm. You understand? You see, you cannot draw compensatory rights. You understand? From that particular, judgment. You see, the judgment God is what is called declaratory. A declaratory judgment cannot be executed. You now find out that when Sarah now gets, say, the government declare, and the court declare this illegal, the court declare this as case may be, government has to implement. It's not, you cannot execute it because it's not justiciable. And that is the reason why we have been saying that the whole of chapter 2 should be, taken off and planted in chapter 4 of the 1999 Constitution. Chapter 4 of the 1999 Constitution, all the sections there are justiciable. And if a government and if any institution should breach those particular rights, there are rights of compensations for the people and for the government. Yesterday, I'm not blowing my trumpet, but if I will blow it, I think I'm okay. It's my trumpet.
Yes.
You understand?
You're bragging rights.
Yes, I got a judgment from Lagos High Court, Aja, sitting in Aja, against the Nigerian police. Against the Nigerian police in favor of my client. I'm going to bring, I applied for this CTC today. I'll bring a copy for you. Where, the court, having found my application wanting, asked that the sum of 1 million naira or the 5 million naira compensation, whatever that we asked for, the relief we asked for, be paid to my client. And his car that was unlawfully illegally taken by force, be returned to him forthwith. In fact, this morning I'm going there to execute that, to make sure that particular, luxury car is returned to him. So you find out that where there is a wrong, there must be a remedy. Ubi just will be remedial. So, but chapter 2 does not give you that legal principle of ubi jus ubi remedium. You have a right, but you don't have a remedy. Now you find out that is why you find out that we cannot hold the government. And for instance, section 16. Let me look at the whole section 16. Let me not take it, subsection. If anybody is listening, he should just open his constitution and read section 16 and see the reason why these particular people are still in government. If truly we were practicing constitutional democracy, go to that section and see and ask yourself that if you are following this constitution to operate in Nigeria here, which you sworn to uphold, I want to ask questions that some of the governors sitting today will not be there. Even some of the presidents who have sat there in that sort of will not be there because they are failed Nigerians. But now, if a governor, for instance, or the president is not doing well in terms of economics or the economy, because what that section is saying that you must tinker with the economy to the happiness of Nigerians.
Okay, let's see.
Nigerians are not happy.
Let's see if we can just run through section
It's
16.
large. Go to 16, 1, 2, 3. To 3, in fact, just read the section.
I had to
Yes.
get this one from Google,
Yes.
so it's not specified like that. It's
Okay.
not enumerated.
Yes.
But we on
It's
economic
economic
planning.
policy.
Yes.
Yes.
On economic planning and control, the state shall control the national economy to secure maximum welfare,
Yes.
freedom,
Yes.
and happiness of the people. Economic resources shall be harnessed and distributed to serve the common good. Ownership and control of key sectors. The state shall prevent concentration of wealth in a few hands.
Yes.
Major sectors of the economy may be owned or controlled by the government.
Absolutely. Now, let me pick it if I still have 1 minute to say. Like you made allusions to the POS people. Why concentrate, the wealth in the hands of those who operate POS? You understand the point now? If there is a deliberate policy for them to grow the economy, the CBN should do something that I don't need a POS man. It's only on emergency period. Maybe I'm in my village and there's no bank. That is the essence of POS. Or I'm in a place, in a locality, in a district, there is no bank around there. And I cannot do transfer. There's a supermarket I want to buy. I run in there and get my POS. But when POS now proliferate the whole street to the detriment of the exchange from the bank, which is the legal means of exchanging whatever the case may be, it then means that it's a very diabolic, economic and voodoo type economic situation. So they are not, the reason why that is flowing. Because consciously, the CBN has allowed, wealth, to be retained in the few hands of those who patronize banks to not get access to funds to disburse at 400 naira, 15,000. So you're even selling your naira. How will your currency grow? If I'm to collect 15,000 or even 20,000 naira and I pay 500 naira for services, who does that? Even the Afghanistan economy do not have that kind of a thing. Liberia, where you can even go with, if you have $1,000, you have to use pickup to carry. You don't even have such. So when you allow the economy to go down in that particular fashion, then you have to leave there. It means that you are not, the CBN governor is the engine room of the economy. Forget about Minister of Finance. Minister of Finance is a political wing.
As it stands now, there's really nothing the Nigerian people can do.
The only thing we can do now, we can only shout and demonstrate. When you demonstrate and go back, you go and make a and eat the goosey soup. Nothing happens out of that. That is the situation now.
Thank you very much, Barrister Sim Adams. Thank you very much, Dele Afanimo, and also Godspar. But we'd like you gentlemen to stay with us as we get into another conversation. Well, Peter Obi has joined other Nigerians to call for quick and major electoral reforms. Let's talk about this one when we come back from this very short break. Join us again.
Are you ready to connect with distinguished Nigerians around the world? The Diaspora Perspective is here to share the views of Nigerians in the diaspora on burning issues.
From the street of New York, the royal cities of London, and the bustling cities of Europe, Voice of the People Television brings to you a roundtable and collage of interesting views from Nigerians in diaspora.
Join the host of the show and some Nigerians in diaspora, Dr. Damages, the flagship, Show, and KJ, as they discuss the experiences, challenges, and triumphs of Nigerians living abroad.
Discussing and analyzing everything from politics, culture, policies, career success, and how Nigerians are staying connected to their roots. Showing every Saturday by 2 p.m. West African Time and 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
The Diaspora Perspective, giving a voice to Nigerians abroad.
All right, thank you so much for staying with us. It's still VOP this morning on Voice of the People Television. And the second topic of conversation today, the former Anambra State Governor, Peter Obi, who defected from the People's Democratic Party to Labour Party, has, said that forged primary, secondary school and university records are not allowed in Indonesia's electoral system for candidates contesting a presidential election. Mr. Peter Obi, who recently toured Indonesia, said that to contest for any election in Indonesia, especially their presidential elections, a candidate must provide verifiable records of primary, secondary, and at least a university degree. Do recall also that Atiku Abubakar and Mr. Peter Obi were first runner-up and second runner-up in the Nigeria's 2023 poll and believe they won the presidential election, citing electoral irregularities and academic fraud by the eventual winner, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The Supreme Court of Nigeria affirmed the victory of Mr. Tinubu despite damning allegations of perjury, forgery, and narcotics trafficking. He went further to say that if Nigeria is to truly embrace democracy, Nigeria must urgently reform our electoral system, strengthen our institutions, and restore public trust in the process. You will recall that in the recent years, there have been several calls for electoral reforms in Nigeria from various stakeholders, including civil society organizations, political parties, and international observers. Notably, the hashtag EndSARS protest in 2020 highlighted widespread demands for systemic reforms, including the electoral process. Organizations such as the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, have also advocated for reforms to enhance the credibility of elections. Various political figures and parties have called for reforms to address issues as vote buying, electoral violence, and the need for improved technology in electoral process. And we still have with us in the studio today or this morning to help dissect this particular topic. We still have Mr. Dele Fanimo, a seasoned reporter and VOP TV in-house analyst. And beside him is Barrister Asim Adams, who is a political and public affairs analyst. And from our Benin studios, we still have Mr. Godspar Okunbo. These gentlemen will help us to make sense of this topic. Now, let me start off with you, Barrister Asim Adams. This call is more like one too many. It's not the first time Nigerians are talking about electoral reforms, even when we were expecting that to happen in 2022. We come up with no too young to run to be, one or the only thing that was infused in that electoral reform. And also the issue of migration or cross-carpeting of politicians, when they've been elected in office. But now Peter B is pointing out that Indonesia and the electoral practice, they top Nigeria, as the case may be. And he's talking about forgery to be the major reason why he's pointing out at this particular time for us to have this electoral reform. What do you have to say about this, given the fact that some of our political elites or political figureheads don't even have or can't even account for their certificates from primary school, even the secondary school. Some can't even tell us where or the tertiary institution they attended and all that.
You see, the point we always compare ourselves to other countries of the world when it comes to issue of morals and morality, whereas Nigeria as a nation and even Nigerians as we are, many of us are morally bankrupt. It's a system that supports immorality largely. It's a system that illegality thrives. It's a system that has been lobotomized to an extent that the people who are pious or those who are near righteousness are treated like heretics and criminals. Whereas the reverse ought to be the case. Before I answer B2B's whatever, I want to ask a question generally to Nigerians. If we are not supporting fraud and whatever, and you think we are going to exorcise it just by mere sanctimony? No, it's not going to be. A young girl some months or I think last year was found to have forged results of JAMB. I don't want to call the name. Was found to have forged results for JAMB. And he came and presented it to NACOT. When they started the investigation, the whole nation was boiling. Before you knew what was going on, scholarships here and there were coming up to that young girl and the family. I was watching on television, people donating money to say there is Nigeria system, whatever. Come on, give to a scholarship, go to Canada, be whatever the case may be. Now, what is the reward system for those who now wrote genuinely that particular jam from poor backgrounds? Is it because they did not perpetuate fraud, as the case may be? No. Two, look at the South where I come from today. Those who are rewarded are those who carry AK-47 along the street and the creeks. They are traditional rulers everywhere. They are opinion molders. If the governors want to, they must have to go there and show appreciation to them. But those who work hard, who follow the law, you will find that they will arrest them and keep in cell. And you are not talking about that you have, an electoral system that will be free and, credible, free from fraud. I don't know. It's not to oversee something. You don't learn it from there. Indonesia today, that we are used to make example, had a template, if that is true. Indonesia had a template. And that template did not just start today. It started from the cradle. So if you think that you leave the cradle, then when the man grows to adulthood, you now de-radicalize the man like they are doing to Boko Haram, you are just wasting your time. I want to say with due respect to P2B, I agree with you that in Indonesia you can't come. There's nowhere in the world that you forge a certificate and you get it to an enterprise. Even if it's your own, if you are caught, you go to jail. But in Nigeria here, it is not like that. There's a reason for that. Now, how do we cure this? It's for politicians like P2B and the rest of them to come back to Nigeria and sit down and say, let us reward excellence. Let us reward moral rectitude. Let us reward people with moral upbringing and not those that with harangue morality. In India, let me give for an example quickly. Are you aware that Narendra Modi, the current Prime Minister of India, had a certificate scandal of this nature, as the case may be, that somebody came and said he didn't have his master's degree, that the certificate he presented for his master's was not even his certificate, that the name there is not his name. But it was later found out that that certificate was his certificate and that the writing, or they call it, I don't know, they call it, there's a way they write this artistic, whatever, that's so beautiful, that there was an error because of whatever the case may be. Instead of A, it now became B, as the case may be. But the certificate was issued to him. Now look at what happened. Do you know that the whole assembly, like we have the National Assembly in Nigeria, when the issue came up, the BJP party raised it in India. A senator or rep raised and said, no, this man does not. The whole country went on its knees and asked Narendra Modi that you must prove that you have this certificate is your own. The National Assembly equivalent in India refused to sit. And even when they sat, they now asked the Supreme Court of India to make pronouncement and now asked authorities in India to investigate to make sure that this particular man's certificate is not forged and is not faked. And they did that. And it was found that his modern certificate was real. And that was how the matter was laid to bed. But here in Nigeria, even those talking now, when we peruse their certificate, you're very sure that they have one or two commas in it.
Thank you very much,
It's a nation that is like no morality.
Before we go to Bini, let's bring in Dele Fanimo into this conversation. Dele, P2B has said something about, how people that get into elected office, elective office, should ensure that Nigerians should ensure that their certificates are verifiable from primary up to university level. Essentially, talking about, we have had issues of certificate problems with the former president and the current president and all of that. But fortunately, the Supreme Court or the courts were able to clear them. Now, you also recall that about 3 months ago, INEC said that they have discovered 142 ways, to make elections credible in Nigeria. What should this thing about issue of certificate, what should the Electoral Act say about it? And I'll also, when you have your take, I would like the barrister to also chime in on it. The Electoral Act, should we actually, since the Constitution doesn't make that kind of provision, should we look up to the Electoral Act to help us do that?
Let me start by commending Peter Obi for the role he's playing in opposition, but for him, the space would have been left empty, because the idea of somebody staying in Dubai to throw stones here in the comfort of his home, I am not somebody that really supports such.
Yeah, he's not. He was in Abuja 2 weeks ago. He has always been.
How many times? But Peter will be, I'm sure by this weekend he'll be back in Nigeria, except he has something important to do outside the country. That's when he travels. And even when he travels, he makes pronouncements that is unbiased and keeps asking questions about what goes on in government and keeping Nigerians updated about the running of the government. So to that extent, I give him kudos. Now to the electoral reform. It's quite unfortunate that we look at happenings now and we don't seem to understand the fact that even if there's going to be any change to the electoral law, it's not going to be by you and I or anybody here. It's going to be by the National Assembly. And what is the quality of minds in the National Assembly as we speak today that will make them give away what they have acquired illegally through the wrongs of these laws? How do you expect them to work against themselves in the process of changing those rules that will make them hamstrung in the next election or subsequent elections? That's my worry. And that's why I keep saying that whatever it is that we can do as Nigerians, we should begin to sensitize ourselves that the only way to have inroad into a better Nigeria that we envisage is to ensure that something gives in the National Assembly.
Okay. All right then. Barrister Atim, are there any constitutional provisions about forgery? I know there are, but in the Electoral Act, do we have any, that clearly states that, look, if you are found, to have presented a forged certificate for elections and all of that, penalties?
134, Section 134, Section 136, Section 134, 136, Electoral Act, Section 135, Electoral Act, that I can challenge all these sections. The electoral, say I can challenge an election, if I feel that you presented a certificate, and I believe that's the reason why Peter Obi himself and Atiku can challenge, what happened there. But that is not even the problem, because there are criminals all over the world. But do you know why criminals do not thrive in some countries in abundance? It is because of the institutions that are supposed to checkmate criminality. Not that there's a country that is free of criminals. When you go to Indonesia, you think there are no criminals there. There are criminals there. I think what he's trying to allude to is that in Indonesia, those criminals who forge their certificates cannot come there and win elections. But even as it is that you have institutions that will checkmate, the moral code in Indonesia is that if you have found one thing that you forge your certificate, the consequences are so dire that you will not even try it the next time. But in Nigeria here, how do you now explain somebody that was fraudulent and was now celebrated and emulated? If that person becomes governor and he wants to contest for election, he can easily forge and present his certificate to a corrupt institution that is verifying certificates and go scot-free if he has the powers to do that. And he goes to contest the election. Now, if the people now discover that this man forged the certificate, what is the institution, what is the law saying? Electoral Act is now saying that even if we find that you forged your certificate and the elections you got it in a very bad way but you have been sworn in, that you will remain in power until it is otherwise proven by that person that you manipulated or you presented forged certificates. So which means if you allow me as governor or president to sit over, a law, whereas because I've been sworn in, what is going to happen? I will press on the underground button to silence those institutions that would otherwise would have checkmated me or investigated me. That is what is happening in Nigeria today. The second one is this. For us to have a proper, verification channel for INEC, what needs to be done is this. INEC, if I present, and I believe that's what P2B is trying to say, if I present this certificate to you, please don't wait. Don't wait for election, or don't wait for a P2B to raise it. Don't wait for a Barrister Adams to raise it that this certificate you presented is fake. What you need to do, INEC, take this certificate to my own Western Boys High School in Benin and say, he said he attended Western Boys High School and this is the certificate. Please verify this certificate for me. Is it true or not? Western Boys will now write and say, no, he never went through our institutions. Now what INEC will do is to asterisk and throw that particular application out for that particular man. But in this case, INEC do not verify. They leave it for me to raise that certificate is false. That is what he's talking about. So what P2B is saying is that you cannot even put in your papers of, how do they call this form, ECA, whatever. ECA, whatever. You cannot even file it and even contest an election if you have not gone through the gamut of scrutiny. So for you to contest election in Indonesia, all these things have been cleared.
Okay.
So I don't even need to raise it.
Right.
But in Nigeria here now, if I put in a false certificate and that I'm a doctor one thing, INEC will not even raise any objection. They will not even go to the institution to go and verify. They will just accept it as my certificate and wait for one Mr. Obi to now say this particular whatever is false though, and now begin to use it. That is what he's talking about here.
No one does, it flies.
I mean, yes.
All right, then let's go to our Benin outstation, our God's Power, Okubo. Now, we have a situation where in Nigeria, if elections are conducted, after elections are conducted, you go to the courts. That process of, staying in power, going to court, adjudicating the case, and then what can we do differently to ensure that cases are determined, even if they have to be taken to the court, they are determined before swearing in?
Okay, what action can we take, to determine cases before going to court? Although we know as a democratic country that we are in Nigeria, our system, it is the courts that is the last hope. Aside the demonstration that the people can do publicly, aside our social media agitation and what have you, the only best or next option or last option as well is going to the court. Now, take for instance what we are talking about, forgery. Thanks to Barrister Adams who have elected all of it I would have want to. I want to emphasize that if anything, for instance, going to school, I remember those days when you are seeking for admission in the higher institution, you come with your JAMB scores, NECO, what have you. If you submit, the school has a way of making findings to be sure that whatever cut-off mark you have is really for you. Now, why would INEC not adopt such process to see that any individual that is forthcoming to contest, bringing their document, they will be able to, investigate such document to confirm that this document belongs to the XYZ person. Now, this is not done. And if it's not done, they have the electoral process have come and gone. Sometimes they won. You see problem if somebody is now raising eyebrow to say this XYZ certificate is not for this person. Now, the biggest problem I've also discovered on this is the prosecution process. Vice also said it all. There is no form. Because there is no, I wouldn't want to say the attempt that is being made, because if, like Peter Obi have elected some of these things, if it was not, nobody will want to know, especially at the level of the INEC or the court or those who are saddled with the responsibility to do these things. So there is no any other effort anybody can make aside the court. And the problem still falls back that we have a corrupted, where both the court, those in governance are the same. So you see that the effort we are putting to make the country a better place is not being seen. People who are supposed to do these things and make sure things is going on well in the country are still part of the corruption system. So
Thank
to
you
me,
very much. Thank you very much, God's power. Well, let's give you an opportunity to just give us your concluding thoughts, because we're running out of time now. So let's have your concluding thoughts. You feel free to merge both conversations, and you have 1 minute to do so.
With me, the bill, like the National Assembly has passed 4.99 trillion. I think the people should be carried along in the expenditure of our budget that has been passed. That is one. The people must be carried along, and not the people be carried along by government. The people themselves should be involved. Wherever you are in Nigeria as a citizen of this country, go after, make sure you ask questions at the level where you are at your constituency. Anyway, budget is for Nigerians. And for what Peter Obi has said is quite right. It's okay. I think there is no country that will want to admit any forgery certificate by any individual to come and contest. So it's left for Nigeria to continue the lookout for those whom we suspect to have forged a certificate and speak out.
Very
the fight
much,
is for all of us.
Spa Okumbo, thank you for your take on the program. Now, let's come to Mr. Dele Fanimo now. Let's have your concluding thoughts in 1 minute.
Yeah, on the issue of budget, it's not enough for us to have the yearly ritual, but how much of implementation should be the focus. And we want to enjoin the government to ensure that at least we have 80% implementation of the current budget.
All right.
And on the electoral reform, there cannot be any reform without reforming those who will reform. That's my take.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Mr. Fanimo, who is a seasoned reporter and also a public affairs commentator. Barrister Asim Adams, now let's come to you. I know you have something else you want to add, so I'll give you a little extension, 90 seconds.
See, what I wanted to add was this. We are talking about electoral reforms. Section 285 of the 1999 Constitution, we have said it should be either deleted or maybe rejigged, in the sense that how? Now, you don't wait for elections to be concluded or swearing to be done before you conclude matters in the tribunal.
Okay.
If election is concluded today, the following day, you must have to be sure that Mr. A, who won the election, that the courts have decided he forged the certificate, you cannot be president. You don't swear him in, then you now say go to court. That should be, it's as a result of Section 285 that gives that power. Now, you now go to Section 138 of the Electoral Act. Right. That has to be amended too. It gives unalloyed powers to those who are sitting for fraudulent people to be in power and perpetuate themselves in power. He says that the moment you have been sworn in, whether your certificate was forged, whether you have blemishes all over your body, as the case may be, that the moment you are the governor president, you will remain there until the court now say, please vacate. And even when you vacate the office, that if you have stolen like 10 trillion naira for the period of 3 months or 1 year, acting illegally there, that nobody should ask you to refund those money to them.
All right,
this is a bad law.
This would be a good place to anchor this conversation. I would have loved us to talk about Professor Ignatius, who was just sentenced for, electoral fraud, announcing wrong results. But we'll probably have that conversation another day. Well, big thanks to you, Barrister Asim Adams, for coming on the program as well. We've had our guest, Dele Fanimo, Barrister Asim Adams, and Godspa Okubo. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for staying with us on the program.
Thank you. God bless you.
God bless you too. But that's it on VOP this morning. On behalf of the backroom staff and my colleagues here, Chukuma Okoro, Fina Okechukwu, I am Moses Humphrey, asking that you join us again at 9 o'clock for newspaper review. And much later in the day, Chukuma will be back here on
Political lens.
Political lens. All right, so don't miss any of it. Stay right here.